Okay, another fantasy series here in Strat-O-Matic. I have the 1983 World Champion Baltimore Orioles going up against the 1979 Montreal Expos. The 79 Expos were included in the Strat-O-Matic Diamond Gem set for the National League, and it's a really good team. I played with the 79 Expos before. Um, Through a roll of the 20-side die, the 1983 Orioles have the home field advantage. So just like in every other series I play, you have the DH in the AL park, no DH in the NL park. In the first game, very nice pitching matchup between Steve Rogers and Scott McGregor. What I decided to do for the 79 Expos, as I kind of had to not really move around their lineup, but decide on who the DH would be. What I decided to do was just slide Jerry White into left field and move Cromartie from left field to DH, mainly for two reasons. Number one, White has a pretty nice card against left-handed pitching. Also, he's better defensively, so I thought I'd make that switch. And for the 1983 Orioles, their lineup and their entire team is basically self-contained. You basically go by the book. They have a few platoons that they go with different guys playing against righties and lefties. The 83 Orioles are a team that really relies on, when it comes to the hitting, they really rely on the 2 through 6 spots where you got Dan Ford, Cal Ripken, Eddie Murray. And then in that fifth slot, you've got a platoon with Renicky and Lowenstein, and then you got Ken Singleton in the sixth spot. So that's where, if you're the 83 Orioles, you hope and expect to do damage. Where the 1979 Expos, they have a nice lineup as well. It's a little tilted towards the right-handed side of the plate, which isn't the worst thing in the world when you consider the fact that the Orioles will be throwing two very good left-handed pitchers, of course, in this series with McGregor and Flanagan. So let's get into the results of this series. Game number one, once again, we got Steve Rogers going up against Scott McGregor, and you could see the 1979 Expos take it by a final score of 5-2. The game was tied at 1 in the top half of the seventh inning, where Jerry White hits a 2-run home run off of Scott McGregor. Put a little black dot next to it because that was a ballpark effect home run. So that gave the Expos a 3-1 lead. Then they add another run with a Scott RBI single, which scored Spire. And you could see the Expos were able to hold off the Orioles from there, as Steve Rogers goes 7 1/3 innings for the win, and Rudy May goes an inning and a third to get the save. So the 1979 Expos take game number one by a score of 5-2. Okay, so in game number two, we have Mike Boddicker going for the 83 O's and Spaceman Bill Lee going for the 79 Expos. And in game number two, you could see the Expos are able to take it by a score of 2-0. So they're going to leave Baltimore with a 2-0 series lead. Excellent game pitched on both ends. Boddicker was excellent in the game. He only allowed 1 run in 8 innings. Um, Ellis Valentine opened up the scoring in the top half of the fourth inning with a solo home run, and then Jerry White had a pinch hit ribby double in the top half of the ninth inning to give the Expos an insurance run. But you could see just really not getting anything out of the Oriole bats at all, as they only got 2 hits in the game. They had a single by Dempsey and a single by Ken Singleton. That was it. Not even getting anybody on base, generating any walks. So the 1979 Expos have a 2-0 series lead over the 1983 Baltimore Orioles. Okay, so series moves to Montreal for games 3, 4, and if necessary, game 5. Mike Flanagan on the mound for the 83 O's and Scott Sanderson for the 1979 Expos. Made some changes to the Orioles lineup going into this game, mainly because of the fact that I really wanted to stack the Orioles lineup up with as many left-handed bats as I could based on the card that Scott Sanderson throws out there. So the moves that were made were Dwyer goes into right for Ford, and Joe Nolan is behind the plate for Rick Dempsey. Also made a move at third base because I just don't like Todd Cruz's card at all. He just has no pop in his bat whatsoever. So I decided to move Dower to third and insert Len Sakata over to second base. So let's see what happens in game number 3 here. Once again, Mike Flanagan versus Scott Sanderson. And you could see the 1979 Expos are able to take this one by a score of 3-1. Again, the Oriole bats are really struggling to really get anything going as they're only able to generate 3 hits in the game. Also, their defense let them down a little bit as they committed 3 errors. The Expos were able to just get across a couple of runs. They got one in the bottom half of the third with a ribby single by Tony Perez. Then in the bottom of the fifth, Tony Perez had a ribby sac fly. And then because of a Cal Ripken error, Jerry White led off the bottom half of the 7th inning, pinch hitting for Rudy May. He reaches on a Cal Ripken error, and then second baseman Rodney Scott drives him in with a ribby single. Another excellent performance by the Expos bullpen as they throw 4 shutout innings in the game. Rudy May, Woody Fryman, and Elias Sosa gets the save. And that really is my strategy playing for the 79 Expos in this series is the games that are not pitched by Steve Rogers, the plan of attack would be try to get a lead by the 4th, 5th, or 6th inning and then hand it off to the bullpen because I do really like this 1979 Expos bullpen. So you can see the 1979 Expos now have a 3-0 series lead over the 1983 Baltimore Orioles as we move on to game number 4. In game number 4, we have Storm Davis going for the 83 O's and Dan Schatzeder going for the 1979 Expos. Once again, 79 Expos come into this game with a 3-0 series lead. So let's see if the 83 O's can extend the series. And you're going to see right here that the 1979 Expos are able to complete the sweep with an 8-3 win. You see in the bottom half of the 2nd inning, the score was tied 2-2 with runners on first and third and nobody out, and Dan Schatzeder coming to the plate. And Schatzeder has a 7 rating as a hitter. And also throw in the fact that he's not a good bunter at all. He's a D bunter. So with runners on first and third and nobody out, I just decided to let him swing away. And sure enough, what happens, I just roll a home run on the hitter's card for the pitcher's hitter's card, I should say. 79 Expos are able to take a 5-2 lead, and the Orioles were never able to come back from that. The Orioles bullpen did an okay job, I guess, of kind of keeping the Orioles in the game. The Oriole bullpen had to cover 7 innings in the game, and they allowed 3 runs. But you could see, again, not much out of the Orioles offense at all. Cal Ripken woke up a little bit in this game as he went 2 for 3 in the game, but you could see at the end of the sheet, Ripken only goes 3 for 14 in the series, and Eddie Murray goes 1 for 14 in the series. And that is not the plan of attack when you play with the 1983 Orioles. They are a team that has to get production out of, as I spoke on before, they have to get production out of those 2 through 6 slots. Dan Ford, Cal Ripken, Eddie Murray, Renicky, Lowenstein, platoon, and Ken Singleton, DH. Even though I know these games in the NL Park, there is no DH, but that is still what the Orioles' plan of attack has to be because I'm not crazy about the cards towards the bottom of this order. And frankly, I'm not crazy about what they have in the leadoff spot with the platoon between Al Bunbury and John Shelby. So you can see the Orioles 3 runs on 7 hits in the last game. Another excellent performance by the Expos bullpen as they pitch a combined 4 shutout innings. And just to go a little bit in depth on the Expos bullpen and what they did in this series, they pitched 10 2/3 innings of shutout ball in the series. And that was my strategy going into the series. Like I just spoke on, any game not pitched by Steve Rogers, the plan was to try to have a lead in the 5th or 6th inning. And from there on out, let the bullpen handle it because I really do like the depth in the 79 Expos bullpen. When you look at Sosa, Bonson, Fryman, and Rudy May, it is an outstanding bullpen. I thought going into the series that the 83 Orioles definitely had the big leg up in the starting rotation category. But again, what killed the 83 Orioles in this series was not really getting a lot of people on base in a lot of these games, and not to pin it on just two guys, but if you're playing with the 83 Orioles and Ripken and Murray only go 4 for 28 in the series, you're probably not going to beat anybody, let alone a really good team like the 79 Montreal Expos. So those are my results from another fantasy series. The 1979 Montreal Expos sweep the 1983 World Series champion Baltimore Orioles. I thank you all for watching. It is greatly appreciated, and I will talk to you all down the road.